Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of our new members of district administration. We are so happy to have you here. And of course, a welcome to our new superintendent, Dr. McGehee. Okay, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. There are 7 board members present. The first item on our agenda is the election of the board president for 2025-2026.
I would nominate Art Gutierrez.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, that brings us to item 1C, the election of the board vice president for 2025-2026.
I would like to nominate Leslie Seeley for vice president.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. And I do want to say thank you to our board leadership for their services last year. So thank you, Lillian and Jamie. Item 2A is adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
If there's no further discussion, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. That brings us to 3A, public comments. Casey, do we have any public comments?
We do not.
Okay. Just as a reminder, public comments are allowed for a duration of 3 minutes per speaker, and speakers must sign up for in-person public comment by 1 p.m. the day of the board meeting. Item 4 is the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, we have Dr. Ryan Cardula here to present this evening.
A lot of June, and I want to spend a little time going over with you. The first document that you see in front of you is the overall action plan. The goal of this action plan is to support the teachers with their integration of the other resource. That's what it comes down to. So you kind of see the action plan there. We started off with vertical alignment, and I have an artifact on that I'll show you in a little bit. We'll get to that. But then we went on and we've been doing some of that training for our families. I've seen 3 kids so far and 1 repeater, so a few. It's been nice. I had one yesterday, it was really good. So we need to establish a team, so we'll do that. We're working on that a little bit. Basically, Mr. Fisher and Ms. Leeds are going to be on that, and some teachers. We haven't had a chance to move the teachers yet. That's something we need to do moving forward once they become back on contract. Non-negotiables, you'll see that in a little bit. We'll go over that document. The action plan presentation is what you're seeing tonight. Then we're going to work a little bit with the teaching and learning team and to make sure we have the observation tool modified in a way that we can use to collect data on implementation. And then we're going to start to collect some data on that, and that'll be part of the information that's shared back with you. And then if you keep going down through that document, you'll see there's a little bit of PD. There's some data analysis. There'll be some sharing out on our quarterly reports of the progress and success measures that you'll get to show the work that the teachers are doing. So that's essentially the action plan. It might change a little bit as we look into the second reading, but that's the draft of it right now. So the next document I want to show to you is a little bit of the work that the teachers did on vertical alignment. And this is good work. The teachers did great. This really aided in the vertical alignment conversations that we did with the middle school and the high school. This document is pretty new from KSDE. The yellow column there, the algebra standard column, just going to give you a little bit of overview and look at this. And this is just one little piece of this spreadsheet. But the algebra standard column is the standards that they teach in Algebra 1. If it's red, that means that they taught it, but they need to work on it. It wasn't taught to the level that it need to be taught at. And if you go down a little bit, you'll see some in blue, and the ones in blue are the standards that they feel like they taught really well and they're confident with. And then if you slide over way to the right on this document, you'll see under notes, you'll see the location in the book or the resource where that standard is taught. And the nice thing about this document is what it allowed us to do is it allowed us to improve our vertical alignment conversations between the middle school and the high school, which is really powerful. KSD will have documents like this for the other subjects. Right now they just have math. I think it came out last year. This is really the first time we've used it, and I think it's really powerful. And it helped the teachers really understand what they need to teach and when they need to teach it. After that, there's a summary. This is a summary of what's been done since we bought the document. In 2021-22, you approved the purchase of the document. In 22-23, we implemented or we launched it. And you can kind of see the big headers there of what we did. The first one, we did PD. And then we did curriculum alignment to make sure that we had our curriculum guides aligned to the resource. And then we did some walkthroughs. You can see there's a walkthrough that Ms. Stanley did and noted that the evidence in the classroom of it being used wasn't where it needed to be. That's going to be kind of one of the things we're going to do this year is do more walkthroughs and collect that data so we can really demonstrate how it's being used in the classroom. 23-24 last year, I guess that was 2 years ago, we implemented some targeted support, some tier 2, tier 3 classes. Actually, those are tier 3 classes, the labs, because they're essential. Those are essentially double block kids. We did more vertical alignment. We didn't have a document like we just showed you. We were just using our curriculum guides, but this new document, the teachers felt like it was more powerful. We did a little bit of on-site coaching with HMH, and we have our data talks. Remember, we did a presentation about our data talks. That's what that is. There, we did those, and we're continuing to do some of those this year as well. And then we ended the year with more vertical alignment. And then last year, we also implemented IXL. IXL is a resource provided by KSDE. It's free for us, so it's a good tool. KSDE gives that to us. It's on the evidence-based list, so it's something that we can get and use. We had to remove Algebra 2 labs because of staffing, and we continued with data discussions and more vertical alignment, and then we started the parent outreach this summer, which, again, has been a little bit successful. The people that's been there seem like it. They've liked it, and the kids have been very successful. I had one girl who's been there twice, which has been good. So hopefully she'll show up tomorrow for a third time. And then the last document would be the non-negotiables. Those are things that we're expecting them to do, like utilize a resource, utilize the curriculum guides, teach with fidelity, make sure they're using the resource over teacher-made resources or resources they're finding other places. Avid integration to high school is important. They're an Avid school-wide building, so that's important. Offering intervention to students who are struggling with core or tier 1 is important to do within the classroom. And then we're going to get into the PLCs and making sure we're doing those and that the principals are working with the teachers on those to give feedback on what they're doing. And then the classroom monitoring is the walkthroughs. And then the success measures are on there too. Those are the things we're going to collect to be able to demonstrate to you the good things that are happening within the classrooms. So at this point, that's a quick overview of the documents. This is the first reading. Really would like to hear your feedback or what questions you might have, and I'll try to answer them. If I can't answer them, I'll write them down and get back to you. So thank you.
Thank you. As always, I appreciate how thorough you are in putting everything together and the timeline and all of that. I have three questions, so sorry. So what, if any, additional training or support will be provided to teachers to help them reach the goals in the plan?
So I worked with our HMH rep to get some opportunities for PD. So I just talked to Ms. Leeds about this just a little bit ago, and we talked about making sure we get that on the list, but there's some options there. For one of them that we're looking at would be to offer, they have a coaching session. They offer 6 hours, so, and it's actually 7 hours, because the first hour we get to work with an HMH coach, and we talk about our needs, and then they offer us 6 hours or 6 sessions based on our needs. So that's one option. There's another option for new teachers. I talked to the rep, and it's really important for new teachers or people who've never used the resource to get training to do that. So we have that on there as well. And then the last option I think would be important would be maybe some on-site coaching where you have them come in. The problem with that one is that one's fairly expensive, and they come in for 6 hours and it's one time. And that's pretty expensive for them to come here. So I think that'd be important, but I think we probably need to do that more than once to really get an impact from it. But we're working on that. I've been talking to Mr. Fisher about that as well this summer.
Okay, great. And then my other question pertains to point 8 about classroom monitoring. I like that we're going to have the principals do walkthroughs weekly. I think that that's important to make sure that we're implementing the rest of the plan with fidelity. I was just wondering, is there going to be like a rotation so that they're going into each math classroom regularly? And then how will they balance that throughout the year? I know that there are points in the year where things get really busy, and I want to make sure that we're continuing to follow through with this plan that you've been working on.
So I suggested 2. For each principal do 2. That might be a lot. I need to work with Mr. Fisher and his team on that. Again, Mr. Fisher and Mr. Leeds and I have been working on this, and I put 2 in there as kind of a placeholder. I think we need to talk to Mr. Fisher and his principals about what they can do. But it's important that they do get into the classroom, and they are monitoring, and they're using the walkthrough tool to collect data on what's being done in the rooms. As far as how much, there does need to be a balance between the math and all the other subjects as well. As not being in that building and part of the administration team, I can't really tell you exactly what that balance needs to be. That's something we need to work on with Mr. Fisher to establish a rotation of some kind. And that could be an artifact that we could share back with you so you can see that.
Thank you, Ryan. I'll give you a moment to finish writing down.
Yeah, I just want to write that down so I can make sure I can get that to Mr. Fisher. Okay, I'm good,
Okay.
thank you.
So I have a couple questions also. So you did mention that we haven't been able to staff the Algebra 2 lab. Are we still seeing some shortages with our math teachers at the high school in particular?
I'm gonna draw on Dr. Mickelson on that one. They're asking about our staffing.
Oh, yes. So I have been working with Mr. Fisher on the vacancies, and we are trying to actively just see creatively what we can do, whether that's buying back some plan time, et cetera, just to make sure that we have all those pieces covered. So we're on it. It's not ideal to have vacancies at this point in the summer, but Mr. Fisher and the rest of the administration team have been working as quickly as they can and just seeking out creative ideas on how to still meet the need, especially when we have this plan in place and realizing that this is important work, and we want to make sure that we are supporting teachers and compensating them if we're not able to find full staff members, full FTE in those positions. So we have a plan, but I mean, we'd love to be able to fill it with a person, but we do have a plan to fall back on if we need it.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted us to be mindful that, like, we still have is it one math teacher?
Yes.
Okay, I was
we
gonna
have
say,
one.
I was wondered how many
Yeah, one-
total.
Just
Okay.
one FTE,
Okay.
thank goodness.
Okay.
We have one. So there is a plan to, again, make sure that everything is covered. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have any vacancies in the entire district for anything, but realizing that we have one, it's better than it could be, so, yep.
Thank you. And I have another question. On your first document, the draft for the July 9th presentation, towards the end, you mention the 9-12 math action plan updates, so 12A requirements. And you said that the report will include the weekly tracking data and other relevant information regarding the math department's progress and the utilization of district resources. So I was just wondering, like kind of what does that look like? Or do you have a vision of it yet, or you're gonna, maybe we talk about the next meeting, so.
So my answer to that is yes and no. We have our secondary implementation team that we're putting together, which includes me and Mr. Fisher and Ms. Leeds and some math teachers, having a conversation with them about the data and what we can share, what we can track. I mean, as far as what we can do there, I met with HMH on there with their rep and their tech person, their data collection person, and there's lots of data we can collect, like on, I guess what I envision there would be usage per week. Now, every week, I don't think we would expect to see usage go up throughout the whole school year, and there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be weeks where they're going to use up more and weeks they're going to use less. So as far as what that kind of entails is I would envision being able to show you usage, how much kids are accessing it, how much teachers are accessing it throughout the school year. Now, again, we need to put some data together and get a sample together of what we can have to be able to really concretely demonstrate what you're asking. With IXL, we can talk about how many sessions kids are using it and the number of subjects, the number of skills they're mastering, which is also important too. And IXL is really used as a tier 2. That's not core instruction. That would be used in like a small group time for a little bit of extra practice, or it would be used during a tier 3 type of class where that's one of their stations they might utilize within the classroom. So to answer your question, I think we have some ideas about what we could do. And we could include walkthroughs, like what we're seeing through walkthroughs per week. Because one of the pieces that I will do is do some walkthroughs as well. And we'll share those, what we're seeing through those walkthroughs. And the weekly is going to be difficult at first to kind of until we get pinned down what exactly we want to be able to share with you. Does that answer your question, Jamie? I'm pretty vague.
Yes and no. No, it was good. It was good. So I think my next question is, like, I see what you're doing sort of for monitoring and tracking, but then where do student outcomes kind of fall into the plan also? And that can be for 2 weeks if you want to think about the plan, but ultimately we want to see our students succeed. So how can we make sure we're tracking their success too?
So we've been, like every week, I would export student records, includes their grades. So we track grades every week. We can do that. We'll also be using, like HMH offers some assessments that kids can be using, and we can use those assessments to form groups, intervention. That's not something we've been doing a lot of right now, but the rep showed me that yesterday, or I guess on the 7th when I met with them, so I think we do some of that. We'll also you'll see, hopefully you'll get to see the improvement through your FastBridge. Right now we don't necessarily disaggregate the FastBridge down that far to a grade level, to a school. You pretty much just get the overview. But we could do some tracking of that to show some growth during the terms. Through our walkthroughs, hopefully we're going to see that resource being used a lot, and those numbers will be high. I don't know that you'll see a ramp of improvement. I think you'll see usage, and that usage will probably stay pretty high during the weeks when we have a lot of academic times going on, like during finals week or during the first week of school. You probably wouldn't see as much usage as you would during week 3 or week 4. So we're going to have to understand that there's going to be times when usage might appear to go down, but we might be doing other things during that time where it's not appropriate to use the resource. So that's why it's important that we're having a first reading here, is because I think some of these things that you're sharing, these ideas, these questions are going to help guide us in terms of what we're going to be able to share back with you. And another piece of that too would be the quarterly reports that we're going to share too, and we have a slide on what we're seeing on the quarterly reports, what those look like. The quarterly report that we do the first time most likely won't be the same we do the second and third time, as we share data and get feedback from you on what you're seeing, what you like, what you want to see. We may be doing some different things moving forward on that too. This is a little bit new. I haven't done a lot of this, so we don't have a blueprint to follow. So we're going to build kind of I hate to say we're building the ship as we're sailing, but we're going to go on what we can get and what questions you ask and try to present things back to you.
Any further questions?
I do. So love Thank you. This is such a really well-put-together plan. What resources are available for families to use that integrate with the HMH, and how do we intend to help them with that and make sure they're really aware of it? I know as a parent, I would have loved to have something that I could have used to help the kids get through some of their math classes.
So if you go back to the top of this, you go back up to the top, where we're talking about that number 2 there, the digital resources training, I've developed 3 presentations, one for 9-12, one for 6-8, and one for K-5, that has links to the resources on it. It has QR codes for IXL and QR codes for Discovery Education. Those are probably the 3 big ones that we use. So helping parents, like for example, on, was it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday. The family that came to Riverside, they brought their Galaxy tablet. And the student was going to be a 4th grader. So was able to get them logged into their student email account and access to their waffle, in Google they have the waffle piece. When you click on the waffle piece, their resource is listed in there, so we could click on it. And the student could then go in to their actual resource and play some games from their class. Now, the problem right now with that is that it's still, he's a 3rd grader last year, he'll be a 4th grader. We haven't rolled it over, because once we roll it over, we lose the classes, so we pause the rollover of the resources until the end of June. So the student can go in and still see his 3rd grade stuff, which is fine. He can go play the games in 3rd grade, he can access the videos and the resources. So I talked to the parent about how they can utilize their progress report that they get back and the text and the math of the progress report and link it up to because the games have titles like multiplication and addition. So if the student is struggling with multiplication and addition, they can go and play a game on that. Or they can go into IXL, and I showed them an IXL where they can go into the lessons, skills, and games and find games that match up to those areas where they're low and be able to do some things to improve that. Talk to the parent about how an IXL, it pretty much just continues. The student the student used IXL in 3rd grade. IXL doesn't ever turn off, it just continues. So the student continue working with what IXL is giving him right now and going forward on that. So as far as that kind of stuff, that was kind of a refreshing experience because I had never seen how a student would access their email and their resources on their home device. And we were able to get them access to all 3 pieces, and they could actually use them. So I have those. The goal would be to utilize them and share them out with the schools so then they could use them with the families. That's why I made them in the presentation the way I did, so they can be used down the road.
I know that, our elementary schools and our middle school, I think, still has a math night. It seems like every year as part of their activities, and we don't at the high school, obviously, but it sure would be nice if we could come up with something like that where we could get people in the building to see those resources in action. Because I know, like, back to school night, like our freshman parents typically come, right? But our upper levels don't always come to those because their kids don't feel like they have to. And by the time you get to conferences, sometimes it's a little too late.
And we've looked at our conference data, so our attendance at conferences. We're trying to correct that as well. That's another piece that we're working on through our strategic plan, is to figure out a way of better establishing contact with the parents. So,
Thank you.
That was good.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me be here tonight. Appreciate it.
Okay, that brings us to item 7A, licensed staff handbooks for preschool, basically pre-K to 12, first reading.
I got to figure out my microphone. Dr. Erica Mickelson, and she may stay up here for a few items.
I will be up here for a little bit. Hopefully, it won't be too long, though. So the first set I have are the handbooks, and if you look at the, just the changes, suggested changes on there, most of the changes for all the handbooks relay to the board policies that we've adopted. So we've had a lot of changes, and they haven't been huge changes in board policy, but the changes that have been made have been changes suggested by KSB, and then changes that we've already adopted into those board policies. So as you look through these suggested changes, you can see the page numbers and then what board policy they're associated with. So really the main things on the faculty, you're looking at, and then all of the handbooks are the board policies. So any questions about those at all? Those are kind of the easier ones, so. And this is first read for all of these, so we're
Okay.
good.
No questions? All right, so let's go to 7B, Athletic and Activities Handbook Updates for
Okay.
2025, 2026.
The next ones we have for the athletic handbooks, again, for the athletic, it's really the change for the dual participation piece. So if you look at that, we added that statement to clarify the requirements. So we have requirements for those dual participation. We have to make sure that they determine a primary sport and then the schedules for practices and competitors. So we want to make sure to give them the opportunity, but we also want to make sure that they are kind of keeping up their end of the bargain as far as practicing and that type of thing. Realizing that if they're in two sports, they're practicing already, the type of practice might be a little different. And then in the activities handbook, we looked at, of course, changing the year, and then changes to the dances throughout the school year were made, as well as updating some of the club information.
I have a question, Erica. On the dual sport participation policy, I'm curious, the policy reads that once approval of both head coaches is given, which of course is appropriate. But I guess one of my questions is like, when would approval not be given? What are sort of the factors that might go into like approving or not approving that? And you can always bring that back into
I will bring
place.
that back.
Okay.
Bo will be here next time to answer some of those other questions. And so, but I'll write that question down and make sure that I ask him and we have that answer for the next time. I know that there have been a situation or two, obviously, because we wouldn't have this on there if we didn't have something come up. So, but I'll get specifics and we can bring those back to you next time.
Any other questions? Okay. 7C, Classified Substitute and Admin Handbooks for 2025, 2026.
Okay, for these, there are quite a few changes. A lot of the changes are, again, just kind of some subtle things. When you look at that, though, we wanted to make sure that we added in some vocab or some language about, like page 13 with the statement was added indicating employees should conduct themselves at all times in the manner that reflects positively. We just want to make sure that we convey that that is a very important part of being a member of the Emporia Public Schools and the Emporia School District. We also have on there reflective changes for holidays, some of the information that came from KASB suggestions for taking out the 2-day restriction for religious purposes. We had that situation occur, and so we took that language out. There's some information about employees retiring or resigning from the district for clarifying language there, and then again, the board policy piece. And those changes are reflected on the classified and the certified handbooks. And then the substitute handbook, we had to change the hours for Jones Early Childhood Development Center because they start later and then their times change a little bit. And then added some language for the communication devices, which was on all 3 of the handbooks.
Okay. Questions? Okay. All right. Moving along to 7D, Emergency Operations Plan Updates, 2025, 2026.
Okay, this one was pretty easy as well. Jared made things very, very nicely for me. I appreciate that. On the emergency operations plan, really the only changes that were made was pulling out all the references to Kansas Avenue. So knowing that that isn't one of our places that we have any faculty or staff or students in, we were able to omit all of those and pull them all out. And everything else. We also did have to update one of our building maps, the one for William Allen White, because that was our last bond building that was touched with the bond. So making sure that all of those spaces were correctly identified in our emergency plan.
Okay, I don't see any questions. So
Okay. I'll be back next time and I'll have your answer. Yes.
Thank you. Next item is 7E, consider approval of the tentative agreement and negotiated agreement for licensed professionals, administrative salary schedule, classified exempt salary schedule, and classified salary schedule for the 2025-2026 school year.
We'll have Mrs. Pam Stranathan to present that information.
Yay. And I'm glad we're presenting it, right? That we're not having any more meetings for everybody that served on that. So just giving you some statistics from that, we ended up having 5 meetings. One was a training. Mr. Rasmussen was our mentor or our negotiator, which he came back, did a great job with everybody, kept us on task. And we ended up with, we only needed 176 votes, and we ended up with 194 and with 6, so 194 yes and 6 no. So exciting that we got that to go through. I'm going to go through just the supporting information and read that because there's a lot of information there, but it kind of recaps, and then we'll go through and look at the language and talk just a little bit about what we ended up settling with. So on the supporting information is here, the information was shared as part of the IBB negotiation process prior to agreeing on a recommendation. We request board approval of the recommended salary package for licensed professional staff for the 25-26 contract year from the IBB negotiations team. The IBB team tentatively approved a total compensation package that includes horizontal and vertical movement for 25-26 and a 1,000 base salary increase on the certified salary schedule, 2 additional years of movement for staff with master's degree or higher, continuation of existing stipends to ensure that no certified staff member at the bottom of the certified schedule loses money, and recommended changes to the supplemental schedule and continuation of the $15,000 pool for scholarships to aid staff in getting qualified to teach dual credit courses and special education. The district also is recommending the base rate increases on administrator salary, classified exempt salary schedule, classified salary schedule, and the base rate on these schedules are increased by 2.28%, equivalent to the base increase on the certified salary. So, and then there was a lot of supporting documents that were added in there. One of the things that to go over with the tentative agreement, we didn't have a lot of language changes this year. So if you go through there, a lot of it was, for instance, on page 2 of that, the college hours form, official or unofficial, because a lot of times now, college students, it's easier for them or staff that haven't been in college to get an unofficial transcript because they can still log in and go in and grab that off of there. So that was added into there. And then right below that, qualifying hours or credits are those taken after the date in which the last degree was conferred. The language on that needed to be clarified because individuals were asking, if I'm working on my master's and I'm working on another endorsement, does that mean, you know, I would get a master's plus 15? So the language needed to state that you would have to complete the master's to be able to get the master, and then complete the 15 after you had earned that degree. Going to the release of contract, that with the liquidated damages needed to be cleaned up. If you look at the language on page 3, it just made it more clear and more understandable, giving a solid dollar amount. Going on page 3, down to number 4, early retirement, that's where we added in the vision. They already had the dental and the health, and now the vision, you'll see that on 4, and then also add the vision on 5 for them, for the early retirement and retirees. Going to page 4, once again, you see vision at the top added. And then because of the change in the contractual hours with Wednesdays no longer being the release days, that changed the number of hours and stuff, and so we cleaned that up to match. And then the rest of the document on language really has to do with change from military leave to uniform service leave. And so that is just changing that language to match what what would be recommended by policy, and to make sure that was in there. Also going up, right above that, is instead of, if you're on jury leave, you get to keep your check. You don't have to bring it back and give it to the district. So, because it's a big one, right? So, all right. And then you'll see also that There were salary schedules in there, giving you the updates on all of the salary schedules, which would also be asked to be approved. You also have information in reference to the budget that was shared with the impact to the budget that was shared also with staff. And then, now I'm not a performer, so the video that was sent out to them, I didn't listen to. Again, I was like, I couldn't do it, listen to myself do that, but went through that document so people could understand it. That was one of the things that came out of IBB to make sure that everybody was able to hear that. So with that, and overall, we would see with all of the increases that we're looking at after our new money coming in, it would cost the budget around $270,000, but there were some other increased costs that would take it up to about $961,000 for the district. So pretty exciting. We got to settle. We still don't have insurance back, but good news so far, that is still staying down low. Hoping within the next couple of weeks, they're finishing that up, that'll come back to the board. Potentially, Lisa will come and present that for IMA to everybody, so that if there's any questions in reference to that. So any questions for me on? Big relief, we're done with
Okay,
that.
and this is an action item.
Yes.
I'll just say Leslie and I sit on the IBB as district representatives, and it really seemed like a smooth process. We had some really great discussions throughout, so I just really appreciate everyone's hard work on this.
Thank you.
I move to approve the negotiated agreement and tentative agreement for licensed professionals, administrator salary schedule, classified exempt salary schedule, and classified salary schedule for 2025-2026 as submitted.
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. the-
Thanks. I'm still up here, I think, so still hanging
Okay.
around.
Renewal of district property casualty and workers' comp insurance for 25-26.
Yeah, just me. Just keep rolling. Okay, so this is the time of year when we have to do our renewal for our workman's comp, and our insurance is with KSB. And what we saw this year was we saw an increase of $139,000 from the prior year. This has to do with our usage. This year, we saw the highest amount of usage, not so much as accidents or things along that line, but usage as in reference to people that had either received an injury and stayed home, whereas before, a lot of times it was people that would be just out for a very short period of time, but we saw a lot longer. So discussions out of that has been with Dr. Mickelson to make sure, as we're looking at safety stuff, and also working with Corey in reference to talking with custodian staff that are in those positions that could encounter injuries, of just reminding and going back and putting in, reminders on safety protocols. So, so that gave us an increase, which, hopefully, what's good with workman's comp is that if we go into the next year and don't see a high usage, then it'll come back down. So it's not something that stays up high for several years to be able to come back. And then the other thing, we're with KICS in reference to our property and casualty insurance. I did start with IMA to reach out and start. So what happened is we got, pretty much the state of Kansas got dumped. And so KICS, which is through our, more or less through the state, is what I reference it to, is they started this program where it was more of a pool. So initially when we started with them, it was about 50, and now it's up to well over 150 school districts because of them getting dumped on other. But there are now other companies out there that have interest in Kansas. So IMA was, since they're brokering our health insurance, can also look at this and broker and start putting some feelers out there for us and then bring stuff back to the district. So that even though we did have a decrease of $25,000, Just them doing an assessment of it being at 713,000, there was a feeling that there may be a possibility of brokering that lower, which could save us some money, so.
What was the primary reason for us getting dumped? Hail? I know that the
Well,
hail's a big issue.
So some of the companies that were dumping schools it did have to do, it had to do with just our region and whether it's tornadoes, it's hail. But for whatever reason at that time, I went and listened to some of them talk a few years ago, and it was just too big of a risk, with schools. The footprint was just too big in a district. So they pretty much backed out of Kansas.
Pam, for the workers' comp, and do they mainly look at the last year of experience as they set the rates, or do they average?
So they
a few
look,
years?
that's a good question. So they look within that year. So they kind of look from the start of the year to the end of the year. And they do look at trend, and our trend has been good. Even though we've had workman's comp, we've not had a high of incident usage as what we had this last year, so.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, if there's no further questions, this is an action item.
I move to approve workers' compensation insurance through the KASB Workers' Compensation Pool and property and liability insurance through the Kansas Insurance Cooperative for schools as submitted.
Second?
Okay, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, that brings us to 7H, the 2020, well, actually, G, sorry, MOU for temporary storage of dirt.
Yeah, so the Tech College, I was okay if you wanted to skip. The Tech College had approached Dr. Harder and I a few months ago, and Corey, in reference to the property is the throwing area over there currently, that lot that's right next to them. As they're doing some construction projects, if they could potentially move dirt over there for a temporary purpose. When it was first approached, they were wanting us to decide that day. And then we said, well, we've got to, we need to look at this a little bit differently and have some conversations. And Corey did research because the initial place where they wanted to put it, of course, was on easements. And so we knew that that was not going to work. And so he went out, did some research, came back, we provided. There was a lot of conversations back and forth, and I think the biggest slowdown on it was just that the company that we were needing some stuff from that they were using was just really busy with their projects. And then we turned it over to the attorneys to have discussions back and forth in reference to this. And so we've come up with the MOU. Attorneys on both sides have looked at it. The district has looked at it. There's no charge for it, but if there are any damages or anything, then yes, they would have to do some repairs and stuff, and they'll have to return that area back to what it was before, which shouldn't take a lot of work to get that back. So that's what we're coming forward with for the MOU. So once it's signed here, if the board approves it, then it'll go to the college for them to move forward.
Right. This is an action item.
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between USD253 and Flint Hills Technical College for the temporary storage of dirt during construction as submitted.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Now to 7H, the 2026 program agreement for school nutrition programs.
And I'm going to let Mr. Carlson come up here on that one. I get to delegate that one.
Hi, everyone.
So the program agreement is something that we do every 5 years, so this hasn't been done since 2020. It's basically just our agreement that with the state that will comply with all the programs that we participate in. Really, it's just a way for them to update their records, so there isn't any substantive change in this except for the names that are on it.
Okay. If there's no questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 2026 program agreement for school nutrition programs as submitted.
Second.
Thank you.
Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, that brings us to 7I, meal prices for the 2025-26 school year.
I'm going to defer again to, that was cruel, making you go all the way back, right? I didn't want to embarrass you. I thought, well, if he wants to walk up here again.
Damn, that's cold.
It's all good. We're requesting some modest price increases for our meals. We feel like we don't need to do anything with the breakfast prices, pardon me, except for the adults. We'd ask for a nickel increase with that. The lunch increases will be 10 cents for both K through 8 and 9 through 12. I'm sorry, 9 through 12 was 20-cent increase. Oh, no, 10 cent. It's 20-cent increase for the adult, pardon me. So we're looking at comparable pricing with other school districts and then the increase in food prices that we're experiencing.
And also, I know it's regulated how much we can increase at one time. So
Correct.
we're within those parameters.
We are compliant.
Yeah, I always hate to increase, but I know that it's necessary. I mean, what you all are able to do and the quality of lunch you provide for this amount of money is stellar. So thank you for doing what you do. I actually Lillian and I actually were at the middle school last year, and we got to have chili and cinnamon rolls, so the best Midwest lunch ever.
Right.
But I just loved how the salad bar is available, so students can just take all of they want and fruits and vegetables. And so it makes me feel good that for this price that students are getting a high-quality meal.
You bet.
Thank you.
I have no problem with the prices that are proposed, but do we ever compare it to what other districts are?
I do every year.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're right in there. There's some that are lower, some that are higher.
So,
But I try and compare with similarly sized districts.
okay, thanks.
Thank you, David. I move to approve the meal prices for the 2025-2026 school year as submitted.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And now 7J, subsidizing school meals for students.
So this is going into the third year, correct? And which we're bringing back to the board asking for approval to subsidize the cost further reduced, the difference in that from what they would have to pay. We have some statistics there for you that during the 24-25 school year, the district spent $28,492, and in 23-24 spent $30,000. So want to just share that with you. So, and if David had any other? Nothing?
Well, the two figures are there, they're very close, but any idea why it might have went down the most recent year?
Do you have any, why it went down?
I really don't. It's a difference in participation probably.
Okay, yeah, and they're
Reduced prices.
relatively quite close, but I just,
Yeah.
with everything else usually increasing,
Yeah.
it's, okay.
Well, this isn't a hard one for me. I mean, it gives people some meaningful relief, and we make sure kids are fed. So I move to approve. Did you have anything, William? Okay. All right. I move move to approve all costs for students who qualify for reduced meals during the 25-26 school year as submitted.
Second.
Please cast your vote, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, that brings us to item 8A, board reports, and we have the Flint Hills Technical College Board of Trustees.
We actually don't meet until the 14th.
Thank you. And Employee Rec Commission.
Yes, we have a short meeting coming up soon. I believe on the 15th, we have a special meeting for the vote to exceed the revenue neutral rate. So if you're at home and watching this and you want to come and protest your house valuation for property tax, we're not the meeting you go to. Every August, we get like 10 or 15 people who come to the wrong meeting, and I have to say, hey guys, we agree with you, but this isn't, you need to go to the county appraiser's office. And then in recent news, the rec had some discussion, and we put $8 million into renovations to the DeBoge complex, and approval to bond about $500,000 worth. But that is contingent on a CDBG community development block grant that comes through, funded by the federal government but administered by the state. So if that happens, we'll be able to get some nice renovations to that area, which frankly has needed a touch-up for a little while. So that's probably the biggest news we have right now.
All right, thank you. That brings us to 8B, appointments for 2025-2026.
Yeah, these are just annual appointments that are required. You'll see a variety of things such as treasurer, school attorney, board clerk, truancy officer. Also, in this item, you are appointing our depositories for our school funds. And then we're required to identify an official paper for our legal publications, other various agents, coordinators. It's an annual action on your agenda.
Any questions?
I move to approve the appointments for 2025-2026 year as submitted.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'm not seeing any further discussion, so please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
And item 8C, resolution 2025-4 home rule for 2025-26.
This is another annual resolution that the board is asked to approve. I mean, basically, the district would be governed and your authority would be limited to that's given to you in statute, federal and state statute. You know that the board, makes some of its own policies to govern the district in the way that it sees fit, and this action allows you to do that.
I move to approve resolution 2025-4 home rule for 25 to 26 as submitted.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
That brings us to item 8D, resolution 2025-5, generally accepted accounting principles waiver.
Yeah, the district uses a cash basis for budgeting purposes, and so you're required to pass this resolution to exempt the district from the GAAP requirements on an annual basis.
I move to approve Resolution 2025-5, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles Waiver for 2025-2026 as submitted.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Brings us to 8E, board policy update, second reading.
This is a second reading of a new AI policy, and I believe Dr. Erica Mickelson will be here to answer any questions and move us along on this item.
Yes, so nothing has changed on this. The one piece that we are going to make sure we update, though, are the student and staff handbooks. Once this is approved, then we can go in and make those updates and changes and make sure that they align with one another. So we are in the process of that, and I will work with Dr. Paula Haug to make sure, she's Director of Teaching and Learning now, to make sure that we have those changes made, so we'll work hand in hand to ensure that those match.
Okay, I just have a question. Why could we not change it the other way around if we still haven't approved this policy, instead of going back to redo the handbooks?
We could, but it's, Mr. Giffen and I talked about it, and it's kind of a chicken and an egg. You know, we said we could have done it either way. So we move forward with this process to make sure that this is approved first before we go back and change those pieces.
Right. I don't know, I know that this was something I brought up at the last board meeting, or when we talked about this previously, that the consequence part that we're talking about is not the same. So I think that maybe, unless I'm the only one on the board that thinks this, maybe we ought to have a more robust conversation about what that is, because we're not changing, like, they're two different types of consequences, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know, but I want to hear from the rest of the board, and if you guys think I'm, like, you know, whatever.
I knew you had asked about something last time, but it wasn't clicking for me until you just brought it back up again. So your main concern is that the consequences aren't clear?
No, they are clear, but they're inconsistent between what the AI policy is and what we have stated the
in the
consequence
handbook.
for using AI in the student handbook
Okay.
is. And one of them is more strict than the other. And that is why I think that, you know, I don't really care either way, but I think we need to be on the same page about what the expectation is so that they match. Because we
So-
might have to go back and reconsider the student handbook that we had previously approved.
So would you be okay then if we approved this, then that we just bring the handbooks back next time with only a change to the consequence section for
Yes,
the AI
if
policy?
we,
And then
as
it
a-
would be in effect before school starts? Would
Yes.
that make you feel better?
Yeah.
Good.
If we as a board are okay with what the consequences are in this policy, because basically that's what we would be changing the handbook to. Or do we prefer what's in the handbook? Does that make sense?
I'm fine as long as it matches. Before school starts. Not today, obviously.
Correct. And we are going to need to, as stated in the policy, we will be doing staff training. Dr. Haug and I have worked on what that's going to look like for the upcoming school year. And then also, we will need to have some pieces in place for what the steps look like and what a rubric looks like for our staff on how they utilize this in the classrooms. We are going to be working with using Gemini AI, because that is a part of our Google suite, and that's something that comes with our Google piece. So really helping the staff, not just teachers, but all staff and students know how to utilize that, and then how teachers and staff can put that into practice with their students. So they know that we're not just going to do a hands-off approach. We are really going to teach our students how to utilize it and how to use it for good, not evil type of a situation, and teaching them at a younger age too. So a progression for what that looks like in K-5, what it looks like at the middle school, and what it looks like for the high school.
So I have a question, and you may have the answer, you may not. I never really utilized Google Workspaces and stuff like that until really I got on 253, and then I got more exposure to it. So I've never used the Google Classroom experience, but if you're a student and you're using Gemini, which is a part of the Google, right, and part of Google, and you're using it through your 253 account, is there any sort of real-time accountability if they're putting anything in the AI that is inappropriate, that flags it and sends a report to staff? Does anything like that exist?
Yes, and it's new. So I've had a conversation, and Dr. Haug will work on making sure the transition with the tech, with Mr. Paul Beatles and Mrs. Murray there is a portion of that already in Google, the Google pieces, that will be utilized or able to be utilized by teachers. It will take some training for teachers, and so it's there. So we are able to kind of watch what they're doing and what they're using it for. So there is a tracking piece, and then we could also look at version history of documents and that type of thing to help us with those pieces as well.
So then the other question I have is, I'm a crafty student and I'm trying to use AI to do something naughty. Do you still have that feature if I log myself out of my 253 account?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We are able to log students out, and we're able to do many things as far as access goes with students.
Right, so you'd still be able to see that AI history even if they logged out of their
Yes.
email account and they're technically using it incognito?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
thank you. Thank you for the education.
Oh, Lillian, any other? Are you good? So would you like, if I move to approve this policy as submitted with, could we just add like a contingency clause that says we'll update the student handbook prior to, so like by our first August meeting, does that sound okay?
Theoretically, couldn't it be done by July if we're just
Sure,
copying
yes.
it over?
If you're good
We
with
can,
that,
yeah, we can have it for July 24th.
Because then it's just moving over, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I move to approve the new board policy IIBE as submitted with the expectation that the student handbooks for pre-K through 12, probably, I don't know, do you have that would that need to be in
It
the
would
pre-K
be-
handbook?
It would be student handbooks and staff handbooks.
Okay. Be
Yes.
updated at the July 24th meeting.
I just want to be clear that it seemed like we had a distinction between what was in one and what was in the other. Have we decided on which one we prefer?
This one.
I guess we prefer this one,
Yes, the one in the AI
Okay.
piece.
yeah.
We need a second.
Okay. So
No, you made the motion. I think we just need a second.
Oh, I thought you said we need to say, sorry. It's like, say what?
I thought you said the same
I
thing, too.
second.
I will second that.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay. Please cast your vote.
You did say 23, correct? Not 24? July 23rd?
July 20, I don't know what
Third.
day
Okay.
today is.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
It's the meeting on the 23rd.
I'm sorry I missed who the second was. Jamie, thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. That brings us to 8F, Joint Task Force Proposal with City and County, second reading.
Yes, we received a resolution that was a little bit different from the one that you were discussing previously. One of the primary things that I had shared with you before that's different in this is that it kind of moves off of it being specifically a joint task force to look at mill levy reduction and focuses more on, in language at least, collaboration and financial sustainability, which is more palatable in my opinion. But I know that Lillian and Jeremy have been involved in this longer than I have. I had an opportunity to attend, I think, the last meeting that this group has had before this resolution came to us. So probably important to hear from them on this issue.
Yeah, so I've kind of been involved in these discussions now for a little while. And first thing I want to do is, give some praise to the city, because one of the things that we had requested was that, hey, if we're going to have any discussion where we entertain talking about our mill levy and how we collect any funding, we should invite all of the other school districts in the county that are also, raising funds through the mill levy, through property tax. And that's one change on here. Those people are on here. I can't recall if it was a change before or not, but my point is that the city added it really at our request. But as we've gone over this, you know, I've kind of had a lot of time to digest this now because it's been about a couple-month project. And Mr. Detter is here from the city, so we could ask him questions if we felt so inclined. But my understanding is that I don't know that the county commission has any interest in being a part of this. I think they basically didn't take action on it last time, and I'm uncertain if that's set to be added to their next meeting agenda. And of course, there is that kind of who blinks first thing, right? They might be more inclined to participate if we vote first. But I guess my only thought about that is that if they don't participate, there's some stuff in here that I don't feel is appropriate for Jeremy as a 253 elected person to really even be discussing, deliberating, or voting on, like who pays for the Lyon County 911 board. I don't think I need to be a part of that conversation if the county commission's not even involved. I have no purpose in that. And so I guess my initial thought for this is I like the way this is written better than last time, and I do give thanks to the city for kind of smoothing that over a little bit and making it a little bit more wide-ranging. But if the county commission isn't involved, then I feel like at minimum this should just be a joint task force between the city and 253 and narrow to just our issues, as opposed to talking about things and entities that aren't even at the table. That said, the city's been very transparent about this. The Rec Commission raises mills through the school district, and the city has looked at and done a lot of work about what could we do to lower our mill levy, perhaps reduce those rec mills that we raise through the school district, and instead offset it with a sales tax. And there's some positives and negatives there. You know, what the sales tax means, everyone pays into it, property taxes go down. But I have some concerns about that, and to be fair, some of what I'm talking about now is the substantive thing that this joint committee would talk about if it hit the ground and was actually running. But I guess my first thing is that if we reduce the property tax for the rec by 4 and we've got a sales tax instead, does anyone here really think the rent's going to go down? Then the mortgage isn't going to get cheaper except for the property owners, right? I mean, the people who pay the property tax. But your renters, you know, if they were assessed, let's pretend, an extra $50 each month because the property tax went up, no one in their right mind is going to think that the renters are going to have their rent lowered because of that mill decrease. And then I kind of question if that's just an illusory tax cut, right? We lower the property tax, the mill's down, but what is the average consumer paying each year in sales tax? Was it more or less? Because if it's more, then it's a property tax increase. Now, the city, I think, has a good point, which is that the sales tax would allow everyone in the community to pay towards it, which means dynamic discs, disc golf, all of that stuff, unbound gravel, you know, they're all pumping money into that fund. So I think there's some positive and negatives there. Some people will say that a sales tax really kind of punches down on the poor and low-income people the most. I think that there's merit to that. But probably the biggest concern I have is that the way our Joint Recreation Commission exists, the city and school district get together, marry, for lack of a better word, and they have this baby. It's this separate political entity that's the Rec Commission. We raise the mills through one of the 2 tax bases. We pick 253 because ours is bigger and we raise more mills comparative, I think, to a city mill. But I don't believe we can raise or lower the mills or even dissolve the rec center unless we're both in agreement, right? There's no ugly divorce. So that makes me think, okay, if we lower the mills now, does that sales tax increase for the city, is that a permanent thing? Does it sunset? Does a future city commission have the ability to revoke that? And if it sunsets, and then we have a rec commission that's underfunded a couple mills, can we even raise that without the city saying yes? And then if they say no, isn't that kind of like an ugly divorce, right? And I don't know the answer to those questions. But I always want to just plan ahead. We know who our school board is now, we know who our county commission is now, we know who our city commissioners are, at least until the next election, which is pretty imminent, but we don't know what those boards are going to look like 5 terms from now. So I have some concerns about that, and that's kind of where my thought process is. I think bottom line, if we have the consensus that we're willing to engage in this, and we want to approve this, I would want to approve it contingent on the county commission being a part of it, and then if not, the whole document needs to be rewritten, because the subjects that touch on the county commission, if they're not at the table, we shouldn't be talking about them, is my opinion. That's Jeremy's TED Talk, and I'll stop talking.
So you said something that really prompted me to wonder, if the county doesn't come to the table, and we don't know, so we have, I mean, I just have to go off, I assume they will, and maybe if I were to approve this, perhaps I would want the clause in there that we would participate if the county's going to participate. Because if the county's not going to be at the table, why would it make sense for there to be a special task force when, the board of the rec center could actually just handle this topic because they have 2 representatives from the city, 2 representatives from the school board, and then their at-large member. So in that case, would a task force need to be formed if the county isn't there?
And on that subject, if the county isn't there and we're not dealing with broader subjects like mills, then all of these other school districts, which I recognize we asked the city to invite, and they did, they don't really need to be there either. It's just a conversation between these 2 entities and then the rec. And I'm not opposed to that, but that's my thought.
But it exists already in the rec
Right.
center board.
It does, yeah.
Lillian, do you have anything from your take?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I might have a slightly different take than Jeremy does, but at the heart of that, I do agree that we can't approve this particular resolution because if we don't know what the county is doing, because it would need to be rewritten at a minimum to remove the language that includes them. I was wondering, the county meets tomorrow. Do we know that this is true? And I don't know that it is on their agenda for tomorrow.
So we could, if the board is so inclined, we could move forward, but that we would only approve this and consent if the county agreed as well.
Right, I am not opposed to being in conversation and collaboration with the city, as I think that that's positive for all of our constituents. I just want to make sure that we're approving the document with the correct language.
The one thing that I do appreciate is that the name of the task force has been changed. I think that this is a more appropriate name. I felt like the previous name sort of told everyone what the outcome was supposed to be, just with that name, so I think that this is definitely a better name. The one thing that I wish were different is I wish the Recreation Center actually, or the Recreation Commission actually had votes, because this is also their future on the line, and so that's the part I'm really struggling with, is like, I know that there's 2 school board members, the city appoints 2 people, but man, it's their life as the very first topic of a discussion, and I feel like they should have more of a vote.
I don't think you're wrong.
If I could suggest, it looks like there are a couple of things being conversed. One would be to approve the resolution with some stipulation about the county participation. I think your other option could potentially be to just direct us as administration and those folks that have participated in the task force to provide the city with feedback from this meeting and see if we want to continue to try to massage this to make it more comfortable for everyone.
I'm seeing everyone nodding heads. Is that kind of where we're at? We want to talk this over more with the city?
That sounds like, to me, where we're at. So the type, this says action, discussion, information, so we'll just treat this as maybe a discussion for now. So definitely, I guess, willing to entertain changes going forward. But at this time, it's still discussion.
And is it possible, Dr. McGehee, if maybe you could also, in maybe the next joint meeting that might happen, if you could, reach out to the county to see if, they've given you any indication or could give you an indication of what their intentions are as well?
I just feel like for us, that is the missing piece we have. Like, if they're in, then, okay, I could be in on this. But if they're not, then let's still have this discussion, but it's going to have to look different than this. And that's too bad, but there is plenty of time to do that.
All right. Moving on to 9A, Superintendent Report.
Not a lengthy report, being the third day officially on the job with everyone back. I did get a couple of days in the office of quiet time to begin to organize last week. But yeah, just a little note on transition. I think that we have a good team that's come on board. While there were only 2 folks, I think, in our leadership team meeting on Monday that were there in the past, at least in their same roles. We had a good, productive meeting, and we're well on our way. I say, a big part of transition is to make sure that us newbies don't slow progress. And so that's our first goal, is to make sure we don't slow progress. But we're already seeing some impact from our new folks. Just a little brief after-school care update. All I really want to say about that tonight is that we continue to talk with Boys and Girls Club about after-school care. Still working through the logistics with Boys and Girls Club, and I don't know where those logistics will land tonight as we speak, but just want to assure the community that the school district is committed to having after-school care available in the next school year, that we will have after-school care, but we don't know what the specifics of after-school care are going to look like just yet. Sorry. I'll go through the whole thing, and then we can come back and you can ask me anything you want about it. How about that? We're still figuring out how to work together here, although we're doing a pretty good job. I put in a little summary of a Zoom that I was a part of with KSDE on title funds. The administration has put a strong hold on title funds for right now, so the states are not receiving those funds. I don't know, they seemed a little optimistic that we would eventually receive them, but they weren't optimistic enough to tell us that we should start spending those funds. And so their advice was to budget like it was last year as far as revenue goes, and to spend at your own risk, that you needed to be sure that if you were going to spend things on programs that Title I would typically fund, that you had the money to pay for them without the reimbursement, because there's no guarantee that reimbursement would occur. They did have a positive note coming out of that the Supreme Court had ruled on the 27th of June that the E-rate program is constitutional, meaning that that program should continue as it has been. And we know E-rate is a big program for us, and Paul would be scrambling if we didn't have those E-rate funds. I don't have the specific impact of these Title I funds on the district as I sit here this evening. Still getting my arms around my own budget at this point.
Any questions? All right, well, we're excited to have you, and we have been having lots of discussions, and so we're going to get there, and we're excited. That brings us to item 10A, executive session, consult an attorney.
I'm going to make this motion, but just for clarification, it only lists the attorney as being invited. I believe it also needs to include Pam and Dr. McGehee, correct? Okay. So I move to enter into executive session for 15 minutes for the exception for matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under the Kansas Open Meeting Act, and that we return to open session in this room at, help me, Leslie? 7:33 p.m. every time. Attorney Tammy Samoji is invited to join the board for this session, as well as Pam Stranathan and Dr. David McGehee.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
I get it. I moved, we return to regular session.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, that brings us to item 11A, future board calendar dates. And tomorrow, July 10th, we have a community meet and greet at the Trustler Business Center, so everybody can meet the new superintendent. That starts at 4 p.m. And then our next meeting is July 23rd, 6 p.m. here at Mary Herbert Education Center. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.